Remember when one of you asked if there had ever been any successful celebrity Vegas weddings? I do. And boy, do I have a list for you. One of the very first documented celebrity marriages in Vegas was that of silent era sweethearts Ina Claire and John Gilbert. They were married at Clark County Courthouse on May 1st, 1929. That was about 12 years before the Vegas Strip really became a thing. They divorced 4 years later, though. Sammy Davis Jr. also got married in Vegas. He married Lorraine White on January 10th, 1958 at the Sands Hotel. Their marriage only lasted a year, though, due to the whole thing being a PR stunt concocted by the head of Columbia Studios, Harry Kahn. Remember him? We talked about him in the Chateau Marmont video. He's the if you're gonna get in trouble, do it at the Chateau guy. Yeah, anyway, he wanted to hide the fact that Sammy was dating actress Kim Novak, who looked like this. And in case you're unaware, interracial marriage was still quite illegal in many places in the States at this time. Sammy had offered Lorraine a chunk of cash to pretend to be his wife, and the rest was doomed from the beginning. He did end up marrying somebody with my pallor, though, so maybe I should do a video on that, because he changed minds and hearts. Then there was Elizabeth Taylor and Eddie Fisher in 1959. They got married on May 12th at the Temple Beth Shalom, and it was quite the scandal, and that marriage only lasted for 5 years. Now, they do have a video on this playlist. I will put a heart on the photo of anybody who has a video for your reference. In 1963, Christine Kaufman and Tony Curtis got married on February 8th. They got married at the Riviera Hotel less than a month after Christine's 18th birthday. Isn't that cute? Tony was 37. Anne and Kirk Douglas stood by their sides. They had 2 collabs before divorcing in 1968. Jane Fonda and Roger Vadim got married on August 14th, 1965 at the Dunes Hotel, and Jane apparently spent their wedding night alone while he was down in the casino. They had 1 collab and unsurprisingly split in 1973. Judy Garland and Mark Herron got married on November 14th, 1965. They were married at City Hall. They got separated a bunch of times before finally divorcing in 1969. And yes, my holiday gift to you will be finally a Judy Garland series, I promise. Mia Farrow and Frank Sinatra got hitched on July 19th, 1966 at the home of Jack Entratter, but they had their reception at the Sands Hotel and broke up 2 years later. And of course, we have Priscilla and Elvis Presley. They got married on May 6, 1967 at the Aladdin Hotel. The Planet Hollywood Hotel now sits in its place. They were divorced by 1973, though. Priscilla was 22 and Elvis was 32, and they got married. And of course, they have 1 collab, Lisa Marie. Elaine Okamura and Wayne Newton got married on June 1st, 1968 at the Flamingo Hotel a month before he began his Vegas residency. It's very fitting that they got married in Vegas. They were married for 17 years and had 2 collabs before divorcing in 1965, so decent run. Zsa Zsa Gabor and Jack Ryan got married on January 21st, 1975 at Caesar's Palace. It was Zsa Zsa's 6th marriage and only lasted a year and a half. She would go on to marry 3 more times. Take that, Elizabeth Taylor. Cher and Greg Allman got married that same year, June 30th, 1975. Their wedding took place 5 days after her divorce from Sonny Bono was finalized. Cher filed for divorce, though, from Greg 9 days later due to his struggle with addiction. They ended up reconciling and had an on-again, off-again marriage until 1979, and they had 1 collab, Elijah Blue. And then we have Melanie Griffith and Don Johnson. They got married in January of 1976, only to get divorced 6 months later, and then remarried in 1989 before splitting up for good in 1995. Demi Moore and Bruce Willis got married at the Golden Nugget on November 21st, 1987. They had a larger wedding a month later that was officiated by Little Richard. After 11 years and 3 collabs, they did get divorced, though. Juanita Vanoy and Michael Jordan got hitched on September 2nd, 1989 at the Little White Chapel. They had 2 collabs and 17 years of marriage before getting divorced in 2006. Now, there was quite some drama behind this, so let me know if you want video. Talia Balsam and George Clooney got married on December 1st, 1989. They were married on a whim, and it lasted for 3 years. Pretty good for a whim. They got divorced in 1993. And then there was Cindy Crawford and Richard Gere. They got married on December 12th, 1991 at the Little Church of the West. The 25-year-old and 42-year-old were married in a last-minute decision, but they split up in 1995. And of course, what would this list be without Carmen Electra and Dennis Rodman, who got married at the Little Chapel of Flowers on November 1st, 1998, but filed for divorce 6 months later, with Dennis claiming that he was of unsound mind. They did reconcile, but were officially divorced in 1999. Las Vegas is where Kim K got her first ex-husband. That's right, Kim Kardashian and Damon Thomas were married in January of 2000. He was 29, she was 19, and she claimed that she was rolling on E when they got married. She also said that Damon was an overall sucky person. They were divorced by 2003. Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Bubble T. Thornton were married in May of 2000 at the Little Church of the West, and they split 3 years later. Eva Longoria and Tyler Christopher got married on January 20th, 2002 at the Little White Wedding Chapel, only to get divorced 2 years later. Then we have Leah Remini and Angelo Pagan, who got married on July 9th, 2003 at the Four Seasons Hotel. Their marriage was officiated by a Scientology minister. They filed for divorce in 2021 after 28 years together. And then there's one of our quickest marriages on this list. Britney Spears and Jason Alexander got married on January 3rd, 2004 at a Little White Wedding Chapel. Their union was annulled 55 hours later. Hilton heiress Nikki Hilton and Todd Meester got married on August 15, 2004 at the Las Vegas Wedding Chapel at 2:30 a.m. on a whim. Nothing good happens after midnight. Their marriage was annulled less than 3 months later. Nikki was 20 and Todd was 33. Jane Stewart and Kevin Dillon got married on April 22, 2006 in Vegas. They gave it a good 13-year run, but divorced in November of 2019, and they have one collab. Jodie Sweetin and Cody Herpin got married on July 14, 2007 at the Little White Wedding Chapel. They had one collab in April of 2008, but separated later that year in November. Their divorce was finalized in April of 2010. And then we have Pamela Anderson and Rick Sullivan. Yeah, they got married on October 6, 2007 at the Aria Resort and Casino. Their marriage was annulled by March 2008, but then they got married again in 2014, also in Vegas, only to split a year later. Some people never learn. Christina Milian married The Dream on September 4th, 2009. They got married also at the Little White Wedding Chapel. He filed for divorce 5 months later, just days before she gave birth to their daughter, and then she told the judge to throw the papers out because The Dream was really a nightmare to be married to, and he cheated on her and she wanted to leave him. Yeah, Christina. Then we probably have the ickiest one on the list. Courtney Stodden married Doug Hutchison on May 20th, 2011. They also got married at the Little White Wedding Chapel when Courtney was 16 and Doug was 51. It was his third marriage, and Courtney's parents had to give their consent. Courtney filed for divorce in 2018. Sinead O'Connor and Barry Harridge got married on December 8th, 2011 at the Little White Wedding Chapel on Sinead's 45th birthday. It was her fourth marriage, and they separated around 17 days later. They did reconcile but split for good in March of 2012. Mia Goth and Shia the Beef got married on October 10th, 2016. Well, married at the Viva Las Vegas Wedding Chapel. No marriage license was procured, but they did get the King Tut package, which included a live stream, which TMZ got a hold of. They eventually split in 2018, but for some reason reconciled in 2022 and had a collab. On March 23rd, 2019, Nicolas Cage got married to Erica Koike. They got married at the weddings at Bellagio, but 4 days later, Nick filed for an annulment, claiming he was too drunk to know what he was doing. Sophie Turner and Nick Jonas got married on May 1st, 2019 in a secret surprise wedding in Vegas before getting officially married on June 29th in Provence. They had 2 fetal clouds before splitting in 2023. And then we have Tana Mojo and Jake Paul, who were married on July 28th, 2019 at the Graffiti Mansion, which it was live streamed. They never got a marriage license though, so it wasn't official, but they did officially split in January 2020 and later admitted that the wedding was done for content. Are you surprised? And then we have Jenny from the Block, used to have Ben Affleck, and then she didn't. They got married on July 16th, 2022 at the Little White Wedding Chapel, always at the center of the crime, in their Tunnel of Love drive-thru. Jen legally changed her name to Affleck, but then they split in August of 2024. Luke Gage and Chris Appleton got married on April 1st, 2023, probably a bad day to get married on, at the Little White Wedding Chapel again. Kim Kardashian officiated. Canadian singer Shania Twain sang You're Still the One while they exchanged vows in matching leather trousers. Chris filed for divorce 6 months later, just long enough for their matching tattoos to heal. Okay, so those are all the ones that didn't work out. Let's do the ones that did work out. I will warn you that they only make up 34% of this list though, so the odds really aren't in anybody's favor. Consider that before getting married in Vegas. And Kirk Douglas got married on May 29th, 1954, while he was on break from filming 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea after Anne had threatened to leave him. They were married by a justice of the peace. Kirk had promised her a real wedding, which she gave to her for their 50th anniversary. They were together until Kirk's passing in 2020 at the age of 103, and passed away the following year at 102. Joan Crawford and Alfred Steele were married on May 10, 1955. The Pepsi CEO and the famous actress were married at the Flamingo Hotel. The pair were married for almost 4 years before Alfred passed away, just days before his 58th birthday. Joan never remarried. Joanne Woodward and Paul Newman got married on January 29, 1958. They were married at the El Rancho Vegas Hotel, one of the first hotels to be built on the official Las Vegas Strip, and they were married until his passing in 2008. Then there was Betty White and Alan Ludden. They got married on June 14, 1963 at the Sands Hotel and were together until his death in 1981. Betty never remarried, famously saying, "If you've had the best, who needs the rest?" Anne Margaret and Roger Smith were married on May 8, 1967 at the Sahara Hotel, and their marriage lasted for 50 years until Roger's passing in 2017. Shakira Baksh and Michael Caine were married on January 8, 1973 at the Algiers Hotel, and they have one collab. They are still married 50 years later. Dorothea Hurley and John Bon Jovi were married on April 29, 1989. They were high school sweethearts, and they got hitched at the Graceland Wedding Chapel. They've been married for 36 years and have 4 collabs. Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos got married on May 1st, 1996 at the Chapel of the Bells. They decided on that date because they had 2 consecutive days off of filming All My Children. They have been married for 29 years and have 3 collabs. Jill Vandenberg and Tony Curtis were married on November 6th, 1998 at the MGM Grand. Tony was 73 and Jill was 28. It was still Tony's second longest marriage at 12 years, and it lasted until his passing in 2010. Tennis pro Steffi Graf and Andre Agassi were married on October 22, 2001 in their home in Vegas before the arrival of their first collab. They just celebrated their 24th wedding anniversary. Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. got married on June 1st, 2002 at the Little White Wedding Chapel, see not the source of all divorces, before their Mexico wedding, and they're still married to this day. Kiki Spicer and Mike Tyson got hitched in Vegas on June 6, 2009. Of course, Mike Tyson would get married in Vegas. They got married in Vegas again 2 years later at the M Resort. So nice he did it twice. Nick Cage doesn't believe in curses. He returned to Vegas to get married again on February 16, 2021 to Rico Shibata. They were married in the Primrose Court area of the Wynn Hotel. It was his 5th marriage, and they picked the date to honor his dad because it was his dad's birthday. His ex-wife Alice was there with their son Cal, and they had their collab August in 2022. And apparently Kourtney Kardashian didn't learn anything from her sisters because she got married to Travis Barker on April 4th, 2022 after the Grammys at the One Love Wedding Chapel, but they didn't have a marriage license, so it wasn't legal. They did get legally married again in Italy a month later. And then for all my Real Housewives fans, we have Bronwyn Windham Burke, who got married to Jennifer Spinner on Valentine's Day 2023. And I mean married because they also didn't have a marriage license when they got hitched at Graceland Wedding Chapel. It wasn't legal due to the fact that Bronwyn was still married to her husband, Sean Burke. They did get legally married, though, at the end of 2024 after her divorce was finalized. And honestly, it's very on brand for her. Another reality TV couple, Chrishell Stause and G Flip, got married on May 11th, 2023. Again, married at the Chapel of Love. They didn't have a marriage license. It wasn't legal, but they do renew their vows every year since. And I really hope that this goes better for them than it did for Heidi and Seal. And our final celebrity couple of the year, Gabby Windey and Robbie Hoffman, got married on January 11, 2025 at the One Love Wedding Chapel, but that also wasn't legal. They did make it legal, though, at an LA courthouse on April 11th. And obviously, these ones are pretty fresh, so I mean, they still got time. Hopefully not, though. I wish them all the best. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you liked this one. If you did, please save it and share it with your friends. Also, let me know who in this video you'd like to see videos made of, if anybody piques your interest. Don't forget to follow me on the gram, the two of you, just in case, and a good day, and may the cold be with you.